back. And so you want to create, let's say you want to upload some data. So what do you have to do? First thing you do, you've got to go to your project. And so we're going to go to the Cliff Test 2 that I created earlier with you. And so the first thing you need to do is create some sample points. And so if you click onto this view sample points, you'll see where it says no sample points available. And so we're going to add a sample point. And whoops, I actually forgot what I was going to call the sample points. Okay, yeah, so we're going to call, we'll say that the one sample point that we're going to create, we're just going to call this raw. If you want to add an image to it, so we will, you can use your menu to choose the file, or you can just drag and drop. You can put a description. So we'll say this is the, I have cap locks on. This is influent to fake test 2. You can put any kind of description in here. A lot of times I'll do things like, I'll do things like, AMD, and then say influent to fake, fake to the system. Might say what components goes into. Type. I'm actually hoping to update this in the future. Right now, it's just sort of like a blank slate. You can put anything you wanted in there, but it's really meant to distinguish what kind of sample this is. I'm probably gonna make this a drop-down menu. Things that I think about in terms of when I put in here is, is it an AMD discharge? Is it passive treatment component? Is it a stream? Is it a well monitoring point? That sort of thing. So in this case, I'm going to say AMD. This is the influent to the treatment system, and so you'll click the inflow box. And this is extremely important that if it is an influent or an outflow, that you click on that box, because that determines whether it shows up in those summary reports that I've shown you. It also goes involved in determining how calculating loading. So it's very important that those boxes are appropriately checked. If it's just a settling pond or something that's just in the middle of the treatment system, you don't need to click anything. But if it is an influent to the system or the effluent of the system, you need to click on those. And if you have more than one influent or more than one effluent of a system, you can check that for each box. Years monitor, this is where I said it's just sort of a blank thing. It doesn't calculate. You could put something in there, but it changes. The flow order is supposed to be the flow order as it goes through the treatment system. So like the idea would be, your raw, it would be 0 or 1, and then you order it. And the idea is that the Datashed will then use those numbers to order, like let's say the water quality report, so that it shows the water quality in an order. There is a little bit of a bug. I think that sometimes that's not always actually working in those reports, but that's the idea behind there. So I'm going to say that this is the flow order 0. Datashed ID of this project, that's not important for here. You can put this information, although it's not really necessary. This is just sort of a generic sort of form that gets input here. I would recommend putting in a longitude and latitude. We don't actually have the link to that website that I showed before, but certainly you can pull this off of Google or whatever. But this is the only way. If you don't put the longitude and latitude, it won't show up on the map. So it is important to put that in there. The active organizations, that's not particularly important. You can put the stream that it goes into and the quad. Not necessarily all that important information for the sample point information. Aliases becomes important. The only need for this is actually related to, you can put it in there, but this is meant for like if you're if people call this different things, so for instance, like I called this raw, maybe it's really, maybe other people call it AMD 20, and so, or, maybe someone else, and how this is, those of you who deal with data, maybe someone else calls this, this is Cliff 1. The IDs, this is related to sys. The way the sys system worked, or at least the original system that we had in there, is that every sys sample point, this within the sys database, it has a specific ID number, and I can't remember offhand, but it's usually like I think it's a 6-digit number, and so it'll be something like 701234, and that's the way. And that Datashed will actually use this ID and the data that's imported to actually assign it and import it into this database, to this project, and show it up as this treatment system, or as this sample point name. And so that's really important for the sys thing. That's something that I do. So it's not something, although it is something as a user that but you'd have to work with me to make sure that we're pulling that data, because in order for the data to get from sys, there's a separate query that we have to work with DEP and set that up with DEP. So that's all that sort of thing. And then when you're all done, you just hit save. Oh, it's not going to do that, is it? Oh. That is going to be really annoying. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to see if that kind of resets on itself. I was having a bug 2 days ago with the same sort of thing on a new project. And that was supposed to have been fixed. Sample point, let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and create the wetland. Let's say the final effluent. We're going to call this WL for wetland. And let's see here, we'll do go effluent or photo. This is, and I'll say, this is wetland, final effluent, let's say S2. For type, we'll say passive system. It is the outflow. We use flow order 1. And we put the latitude and longitude in there. And we'll save it. That's not, let's see here. What happens if this is this is frustrating. I was having the same problem the other day, and the programmers went and fixed it. It was working yesterday. I'm not sure what the deal is there. So, but that's how you create the sample points.